an unofficial podcast of the PlayStationLifestyle.net forums. I am Hugo Stiglitz. You can find me on PSN as Hugo Stiglitz _420. Same with Steam, Uplay, and Origin on PC. And Xbox Live as THNK4URSELF. And you guys want to say what's up?
Hello, I'm Jordash. You can find me on PSN as Jordash7K, and on the forums and comments and elsewhere on the internet as Jordash7K.
And I am Brian Mashala. You can find me on the comments and forums as Brian Mashala and on PlayStation and Nintendo networks. And I guess Steam as CloudStripe768. Don't send me a Steam message. I won't answer.
Awesome. Lately I'm playing a few different things. I finished up Black Ops 2 over the weekend. Played a little bit of Assassin's Creed Unity, but the past couple days I've actually been playing Amnesia: The Dark Descent. Not because it came up for free, but because I had planned on playing it finally this month. And I finished it last night. Liked it, but I wouldn't say it deserves the praise it's got over the years. I've always heard that it's like such an amazing horror game, and I thought it was cool and all, but I don't know, some of the puzzles were super obtuse. Also, the way the game progresses was a little repetitive. Like, you go to an area, then there are a few sub-areas you have to go into in order to get supplies and solve a certain puzzle to get to the next area. And it did that like 4 times, and then came to the end. But otherwise, it was cool. Like, it had a cool atmosphere, and there's a couple scares, not much. Like, for me, nothing really scares me, but really there was very few scares. And I thought originally that Soma was just way less scary than Amnesia, but they're really about the same. Because they just kind of spread out. It's not like Outlast where you're constantly getting jump scared, or even Alien Isolation where it's definitely not constant, but there's such intense situations in that game. It's not even funny. It was still a very cool experience to play. Other than that, I was messing around with The Evil Within on remote play just because, that game, the sequel is coming out a week from Friday, which is pretty cool, and I am definitely getting that. But, Lara Croft Go, I'm pretty close to the platinum on that one. But, also, I did try Fortnite Battle Royale, but I guess we'll talk a little bit about that a little later. So what have you been playing lately, Jordash?
I meant to play Battle Royale, and I completely forgot because I was still so busy playing Metal Gear Solid 5. That's basically the only thing I played all week. The only other thing I touched at all was I played Hue for the PS Plus. It's another standard indie puzzle platformer. I'm saying it's better than I guess the average, which I'm saying the average as I'm comparing it to the last one of Tesla Grad, which I did not like as much. He was all right, but I just played through that. The wife and I had fun going through the puzzles, but the rest of the time, Metal Gear Solid, all systems go. It's and I've only just gone to Africa, and I don't know how many hours I've played, but it's many. I have kidnapped a lot of people with balloons. It's been a good time.
It took me 107 hours to finish it.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm going to go
time.
back and try to platinum everything and get S ranks on all the missions.
See, I actually skipped a lot of those. There's a bunch of missions that you it's kind of like you're replaying missions, but at higher difficulty. I skipped a bunch of them, and then just kind of went straight to the main story missions to finish it. It still took me 107 hours.
Yeah, I've been doing all the side missions, and
it's you can do it way quicker. It's just that the way I played it I really tried for stealth. If I failed stealth, most of the time I would just restart.
That was kind of what I was doing too. I've killed very, very few people.
Yeah, I mean, it's not that I couldn't play it the other way, or if I get caught, just kill everyone and then finish. I just didn't want to do it that way.
Me too.
I wanted to pretend I was actually Solid Snake and do it right. I mean, not Solid Snake, Venom Snake, whatever.
Pretend boss, fake boss. Well, spoilers. Um, yeah, but that was it for me this week. All Metal Gear.
There's nothing wrong with that at all. I don't remember how many hours I put into it. I don't remember a whole lot from that time period because it came out like 3 days after my son was born, so it was just a lot of semi-sleepless days of playing while feeding him or him sleeping on me and stuff like that. But I put in a whole lot of hours myself. Uh, as for what I've actually been playing this week, I've been chipping away at Final Fantasy IX. I've mostly been playing a lot of Ys 8. I think I'm getting pretty close to finishing that. Polished off Mario and Rabbids Battle Kingdom. Some Destiny 2. And Monster Hunter Stories on 3DS. And I think that's it.
Sweet.
That is in fact it.
Nice. So there were a couple of news stories this week. For one, Andrew House is no longer going to be the president of PlayStation. Yeah, I think it's PlayStation, right? It's not actual Sony, but it is PlayStation, I believe. And I guess he's going to step down at the end of the year. He's going to move on to something else. But, much like Jack Tretton, he's kind of leaving while he's on top, kind of. Because, he and Jack were, a big part of why the PS4 launched with such huge success. And I always thought he seemed like a good guy, and stuff. I don't know if he's, a gamer or anything like that. But, yeah, I guess he'll be missed. Hopefully the new guy is cool, much like Sean Layden, I think is cool, because he is a gamer, it seems, so.
Well, the new guy is already part of PlayStation. He's the deputy president or deputy CEO, or I don't remember exactly which, but it's basically a small promotion to what he's been doing before, which is good. I don't really personally know too much about it. Andrew House, he was primarily the boss over at Sony Europe before they became a global company.
Mm-hmm.
Bit of the 3 or 4 disparate elements of PlayStation, but I never heard anything terrible about him, so yeah, going out on top is a good way to put it. Not quite as on top as Jack Trenton, but
oh yeah, you couldn't
quite
go
a bit
out more like a savage than Jack did.
No. But yeah, I mean, PlayStation is on top by a very large margin compared to the competition, so
And rightfully so. I mean, they're still putting out first-party stuff. It's definitely good to be a PlayStation gamer these days, I'd say. But, we had another news story. Apparently, Fortnite Battle Royale has been very successful. I don't know the exact numbers. Brian, you want to clue us in on that?
I was reported that 7 million players were playing Battle Royale not too long ago. And that's, of course, across PS4, Xbox, and PC, I believe. Or all 3 platforms. Or all platforms where Fortnite is available now. I think that includes PC and Xbox. I'm not entirely sure, but fairly certain. But considering Battle Royale came out a week ago officially, that's huge.
Yeah, they're doing alright for themselves.
Especially given all the, I wouldn't necessarily say it's controversy, but just general bullshit of PUBG and Xbox exclusivity, and no one's really saying when it won't be exclusive. And, one news story is saying they're talking to Sony, the other news story is saying they're talking to Microsoft to extend their exclusivity deal. So, in the meantime, Epic is doing pretty well, just putting out a free-to-play version of it that is obviously very, very successful.
And I say rightfully so, just because I played it, and I gotta say, I like what I played, and a big reason for that is because of how simple it is. It is very, like, I didn't read up anything on it. All I did was just pick up a controller, start playing, and it was maybe the second match where I figured I knew how to do everything, basically. Like, it's very easy to figure out, very easy to pick up and play, and fun, I think. Like, because you can, if you die, you just jump into another match. Like, and I guess the downside of that is, yes, you do have to, like, you have that waiting period of, like, the pre-area before you go flying on the bus and then jump out, and then obviously actually being on the bus and then jumping out. So, like, that, if you die quick, that can be a little frustrating. But if you, like, you know, if you get good at it and, like, start killing people, I think it can be pretty fun. Like, I'm definitely going to play more of it, but I like it for sure.
I only played one match, and I knew I wasn't gonna like it because I'm just not into that kind of game, which is why I've had zero interest in PUBG from the get-go. But I mean, it plays just like Fortnite, PvE mode. Obviously, it's balanced a little differently because you get the gun. The gun system is a little differently with more of a focus on crafting and durability, and then obviously a much bigger focus on building and cooperative gameplay versus competitive. But yeah, it's every system in place is similar to Fortnite, and it's all pretty easy to pick up and play. I mean, the building. I don't know how many people actually build during the PvE matches or PvP matches.
You'd be surprised. I saw one guy using it for cover, and, like, yeah, it was kind of crazy. Because I'd spectated a little bit after one match, and at the end of the match, like, there was this one guy that kept building stuff to hide, and then this other guy tried to do it, but then somehow the other guy shot his stuff down right away and killed him. And I was a little annoyed because I was rooting for the other guy, but because I thought the other guy building stuff to try to hide and camp was kind of cheap, while the other guy was actually using a legit strategy, trying to flank and get around the edges of the playable zone to get this guy. And yeah, no, he failed at the end. But people do use it a little bit. Like, I remember I was like the first game I played, I was in a house, and, like, there was a dude in the attic building stuff up above me. I smashed through one of his walls and then marked him, took all his guns and stuff. But yeah, it was weird. He was building something up there, which is, I didn't understand why, because he was in a zone, like, because right after that I got killed by the storm thing, you know. And so it's like, I think maybe he didn't realize, and I definitely didn't realize because it was my first match, but, like, neither of us realized that we actually had to get going in a different direction, not just, like, try to stay in a house. But
Right.
All I need to know is, can you build, like, a stairway to heaven? Just up. Can you do that in the game?
you I don't know, like, how high you can go, but you would probably run out of supplies or just get shot long before you would get above the tallest hill.
So you're saying there's a chance.
Well, they don't need to shoot you. All they have to do is look at your stairway, and you don't necessarily need the support all the way. It doesn't necessarily have to be structurally sound, but if you're building a stairway and you're up a certain distance, and then they knock out the bottom stairway, then the whole thing will come down and you will die.
Really?
So
That still sounds like it's worth the risk.
I think you would probably run out of supplies before you got the ability to go all the way up, because while it caps out at 999, that seems like a lot of time spent harvesting resources while people are shooting at you in a PvP match while the storm
I've been playing a lot of Metal Gear Solid 5. I'm pretty sure I can stealth my way around now.
Too bad there's no crouch. Or prone. Or anything except build a wall.
I think that's actually kind of good that there's no prone.
Well, you have the ability to
suck, yeah.
It'd be annoying if people just lay in their stomachs like bitches, but like the other.
That's why you can build. You, instead of laying prone to hide behind a bush, you build a wall and hide behind it.
What, like, one thing though is that I do feel like it would be a bit better if it was first person, or they've really got to add in an option to swap the shoulder that the orbiting camera is over, because you can't. And I can't tell you how many times it was so annoying for me, because like I was trying, like I knew where a dude was, but because of the angle, I would have to expose my body fully before I would actually be able to get my crosshair on him because of the way the camera was. And it's like most games have the option to switch, that sort of thing. Not this one though.
Yep, that's always bothered me, and I think it's only because, again, based on the base game of Fortnite, there was never much of a need to have the ability to swap shoulders in, for shooting in third person and stuff like that. It's always that fixed over the right shoulder, because you have the mini map that shows you where monsters are, and you have, realistically the ability of other people watching your back.
Mm-hmm.
I think they might change that. I don't know about a first person mode that might make building difficult, but I feel like swapping shoulders might be something that they end up doing.
Yeah. Overall, it seems pretty polished, except there were some like annoying audio issues. Like, I don't know. It's definitely partly because I was wearing headphones, but like your actual footstep audio bounces back and forth between the left and the right depending on where you're looking. Like if you're looking to the right, it'll be on the right and it won't be so bothersome. But if like you're looking like kind of forward or then looking a little to the left, a little to the right, it just bounces back and forth, and it's a little annoying, to be honest. Like it should like kind of blend between the two. It shouldn't just hard pan to the left or the right if you just look a little bit off center. You know what I mean? Like it's a little weird like that. But that's, I gotta think something they'll fix. But it's early access. Otherwise, it's pretty damn polished and it looks pretty good. It's like it's cartoony, but it's Unreal Engine 4 and you can tell, so it looks good. So
yeah, I like the aesthetic.
Yep.
It's fun.
Real quick before I have it on my mind, what day is the Gran Turismo Sport demo? When does that come out?
Monday.
Monday? Cool.
Only lasts till Thursday, but
hey, I'll take 4 days of Gran Turismo.
Yeah. Hell yeah. Especially because this one will actually have, like, more of the features and not just the online. Because the closed beta was cool, but it's like, I really wanted to mess around with photo mode and some of the other stuff, and this one, it won't have all the content or tracks, but, like, it'll at least have, like, the features that you can try, so that'll be cool. I'm getting it out of the way. I already have it pre-ordered. So, that'll be fun.
Yeah, I didn't know if you were getting that day one because you were still playing,
of course.
I don't know if it was Project Cars or something
F1.
else. F1, yeah.
Yeah, no, like, I'm not getting Project Cars 2 yet because of Gran Turismo, really. Well, and F1, but it's like, I just don't, I'm not going to have time. Gran Turismo takes a priority over
I had
Project
it backwards,
Cars.
yeah.
So. But yeah, this week our topic is season passes and DLCs. And, like, I think often it's a good thing. There's also many occasions where it's not, or maybe it's a little abusive towards gamers. Like, there are a lot of games that have, like, $50 season passes every year. It's a little irritating. But then there are other games that have free maps, no season pass, and just like it's just cosmetic stuff that you can pay for, which I think is fine. Then there's also all sorts of stuff in between. I generally like it, especially for certain games, like racing games. I'm a sucker for racing games DLC, usually. Like I've bought every piece of Assetto Corsa DLC on PC and console. Mainly because it comes out first on PC and then a couple months later on console, and I don't feel like waiting, but like I'm a sucker for when it comes to cars and tracks and stuff. But yeah, I don't know. What do you guys think about the whole season pass? Because there's definitely a lot of examples of abusive practices from these publishers that I don't know. Are we going to include microtransactions or?
Yeah, all that crap's the same. It's all together.
Yeah.
Yeah, as our resident cheapskate, I avoid many DLC type things, and a lot of times if
Hmm.
I'm going to buy a game, I'll be waiting until Game of the Year edition comes out.
Hmm.
Uh, yeah, for such as say like Shadow of Mordor. Um,
Yeah,
yeah, which that
it's
was
like
a great game,
$4.
and I ended up getting it Game of the Year edition for $8, and I bought that I think around Christmas time last year,
Hmm.
and then that was really good. Um, one of the big stories that also came out this week was the Marvel vs. Capcom and how its budget was super slashed. That it was only like half of the price of Street Fighter V's DLC was their entire budget. And the same story also talked about how they had cut finished characters from the game specifically to sell later as for $8 per character because it's Capcom. And
Yeah, to me that's bullshit.
having that like public because a lot of times people will talk about it, they probably just held that back. Well, these people are like flat out saying that's what Capcom did in this specific situation to charge you $20 for three more characters.
Yeah,
And
like,
that is, and stories like that are why people hate DLC. Go ahead.
hmm yeah, cutting content is definitely something that's not cool whatsoever, in my opinion. But like, I actually have I've had this argument multiple times with a certain complainer on PlayStation Lifestyle. You guys
You
probably
can
know who
say
I'm talking
Yowza
about.
Yowza.
Yeah, it's Yowza.
I like
But like,
Yowza.
I do too. But like, there's something that racing games do a lot because they have to pay for licensing and get it out of the way before they actually can put out the content. So it's like if certain DLCs are announced in a racing game, he always assumes that it's being cut from the main game, and it's almost never the case because like a lot of the times, like just to do one car, it takes 6 months. Like it's a ton of work, and it's like I've had this argument with him multiple times, trying to explain to him how DLC works with racing games and just content in general because the licensing is a tricky thing for racing games. Like if you want to have licensed cars, like you have to pay for the licensing, and often when they get the license they'll announce it and they'll make their DLC plans ahead of time, even though they're not actually going to start working on it or be even close to done with it until well after the game comes out. So he always makes the assumption that it's cut content and or this and that. Like he did it with Project Cars 2, and it's like, yeah, Project Cars 2 has one of the best car lists at launch of any racing game ever. Same with the tracks. Like it has more tracks than pretty much anything, and he made that assumption. He also did the same with Drive Club, which is also another one that had ridiculous amount of content on launch and then even more post-launch, but it was all stuff that like, a lot of it was free too, but like it's just all stuff that like they have to get the license, they have to get the car modeled, they have to do a ton of testing. Like it's not anywhere near as simple to add cars to a racing game as you would think. So that's not cut content, but cut content is certainly bullshit. And I like famously Destiny 1 was originally supposed to include the Taken King and launch with it. What was up to the Taken King edition. They took that out because of Activision. I'm sure it was Activision's idea, not Bungie's. And it ended up being the piece of shit that I bought on day one that I still will not touch Destiny again because of how much of a grind it was back then, which is when I played it. It was the only time I played it. I pretty much gave up on it pretty shortly, just once I figured out what I would actually have to do just to do the raid, and then saw the prices for the DLCs and how little they added. Yeah, I'm out, like, for as far as Destiny or any MMO goes. Like, I know, Brian, you're used to it, but to me, MMOs are, like, especially Destiny, is one of the most abusive type of DLC content that can release, especially because they don't have season passes, and if they did, it would probably be like $100 anyways. So
Yeah, I think
It's,
Destiny had two. Like they had the year one pass, and they had more on top of that.
well,
well,
yeah, I
it's
had an expansion pass which included the first two, which each were $20, so, and I think it was maybe $35 for the expansion pass, and then the Taken King was another $40 when it first came out. So basically, within 1 year, if you bought everything on day one, you were spending $120 on the game. Actually, 140. Sorry.
uh, well, real quick, the whole Taken King being part of the original game, it's not entirely true. It
Well, they
was
admitted
supposed to be
it, so I
part
mean,
of, well, it was supposed to be part of the original scope of the game, and then they backtracked and had to redo the story about a year before and changed a bunch of stuff up, which is why you didn't have much of a story in the beginning of the game, and that's why it was a little weird, because it just no longer fit in the sense of the game as originally were. So it's not entirely cut content, just reshifted content because of the game shifted focus a little bit and the story had to be redone. So a year before launch. With the first two, like House of Wolves and The Dark Below pieces of content, I will be the first to admit that they were bullshit.
Especially House of Wolves.
They shouldn't have been. I mean, both of them shouldn't have cost any money at all. They were the equivalent of content patches in a real MMO, or not a real MMO, but like a computer-based subscription MMO. And The Taken King and Rise of Iron being $40 individually isn't that big of a deal. It's more like an expansion to the base game, which is what MMOs do all the time anyways.
Yeah, Destiny doesn't have a subscription like
you don't
Final
pay
Fantasy
15
14 and stuff like that.
Yeah, I pay $13 to $15 a month for Final Fantasy 14, and I did with WoW for 10 years, so you get some of that for free because you pay every month versus every 2 to 4 years you pay another 50 to 60 on the expansion. But yeah, it's a completely different story. Before we circle back to season passes, because I have a lot to say about that, though, I just want to say that whoever, and this applies to everyone who thinks that DLC is cut content, it's just some conspiracy bullshit.
Sometimes it is. I mean, like you mentioned before with the Marvel Capcom thing. But yeah,
Capcom.
You're right. Typically,
it is
conspiracy type bullshit because like they
Yeah,
really do
yeah,
have to
it
plan that
absolutely
stuff
is.
ahead of time. But I think they kind of ask for that type of accusation when they announce it so far ahead of time. Like I don't like that practice. The idea of like announcing a game and then right away telling you that there's going to be DLC and like what it's going to be, like they did with Shadow of War. That I didn't like. Like you shouldn't be announcing a game then the next day announcing all the DLC and stuff like that. Like
Well, I think they could just be
it can
smarter
wait.
about
It's DLC.
announcing
It
it.
can wait.
Like, because if they just said like a few months before, they could just say, "Oh, we're working on some DLC." Just like leave it at that. So it's like, oh, they just thought of the idea, but instead they're like, "No, we're gonna have this specific thing, and you do these specific things," and they tell you that 6 months before, and then that's what plants the conspiracy idea in your head. If they just said, "We're working," there's going to be 2 things of DLC. That's it. Bye. Just leave it as a mystery.
That sometimes works and it sometimes doesn't. I mean, if you leave it really vague, then there's less of a chance of people being interested when the time comes, possibly, because they're while they are earnestly and honestly trying to make good content to sell you at the same time, there are publishers that are trying to take your money regardless. So if they try to leave it vague enough and just say season pass is coming, buy in advance, this they have your money, so you can't cherry pick through the content ahead of time and stuff like that. But I mean, just saying it's cut content, while true in some cases, like with Capcom, often, most others, even if it's planned far in advance, is just normal, is part of the game. These games are finished months and months before release because they have to go through QA testing, certification, disc pressing, and then launching the game. That's why we have day one patches. It's not because these games are, I mean, some games are terribly broken, but it's because these games are continually being worked on even after they're quote unquote done.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the exact
True.
same thing with DLC. Some of these companies, one of the best examples I can think of is Final Fantasy 15. After 10 years, I'm sure they had tons of assets, tons of ideas, tons of plans, tons of unused content, and it's not cut from the game. They had the story in mind. They had the A to B to C in mind. That was the game on the disc. They announced last year in March, I believe it was, that the release date was going to be September. So you'd have to believe if they were that sure that the release date was going to be in September, the game was basically done, even though it got delayed till November, December, something like that,
Mm-hmm.
for polishing and stuff like that. But the game was done months and months before that, so it's not that hard to believe that they would sit there and start making a roadmap of, well, we're done with the game. We have all of this content that wasn't just not used in the game because it didn't necessarily have a place. Maybe we should work on it and see what we can do. And that's why, with Final Fantasy, not only did they continue to put out free content updates and continue to work on the game gradually, but they also had the DLC for, episode Gladiolus, episode Ignis, episode Prompto in mind, probably long before the game was shipped, even though we didn't necessarily know what the DLC entailed until a couple months after launch. The Witcher 3 is another great example. How they probably finished the game well in advance. They continually added to the game because, people asked for stuff and they worked on it, like New Game Pluses and, I don't exactly remember what was added to it, but they did that and they continually updated it, while at the same time, well in advance, they had their roadmap. Well, we did this, but then we have this other little side story that has nothing to do with the game, with the main game. So we're just going to put it in the season pass as a piece of DLC, and the player can go do it at their leisure, which is exactly what it is. It's the Witcher DLC is, each of them are basically standalone pieces of content, like, Left Behind. They can be played on their own. I don't think they can be. Actually, you have to buy the game, but you don't have to have played, story-wise, The Witcher 3 to understand what's going on in the DLC.
Mm-hmm.
And that applies to most DLC. These games are done months and months in advance, so either the development teams sit on their hands and do nothing, or they work on the game and put out more content. Thinking most of it is cut is stupid.
I mean, as far as DLC, like existing, period, I don't have a problem with that at all. Like, how long have video games cost $60? And that started with like the PS3 360 time, right?
No, it was before that.
Well, I remember PS2 games being $50.
Actually, I was just watching a documentary on id Software, and actually Doom and Wolfenstein both were basically $60. Like, I forget, one of them was like you had to, you paid $10 for like the first episode, then you had to pay another $50, like send it to them. But yeah, no, they were $60 back then.
Well, it always depended. Discs were 40 and then 50 and then 60. Cartridges cost upwards of like 100.
Yeah, they were.
Oh, that's crazy. I remember, because I mean, from 64, as far as I remember, they were like, I don't know, 60.
It was like 60, $70.
I don't remember them ever being above 60. To be even.
I can remember seeing, depending on the store, cartridges could be like solid 70.
And I remember like San Andreas being like 55, but I don't know. My memory's not the best, like, because I didn't really buy a lot of brand new games back then. Like,
yeah, back in the early 2000s, the PS2 era, new games were $50. I mean, if you were paying $60 for them, I don't know why you bought them at some ritzy video game store, but
some were more expensive for some reason. I mean, I've some of the really like triple, like I'm pretty sure God of War was a pricier game, but if you bought Wild Arms 3, even though it's an amazing game, or Dark Cloud, those were on the cheaper end because they were a little more niche and less popular. But the popular stuff sold like hotcakes, even at 50 to 60.
But the point I was trying to make, we'll bring it back around, is that the price of video games hasn't changed in forever.
Yeah, it's pretty much.
And it costs, I don't even know how many more times as much to make a game, especially like a AAA game with 100 people working on the game. Oh, for
sure, yeah.
So them selling more content to make more money, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Yeah,
that's right.
Just the overarching things, the conspiracies of content being withheld, like Capcom does with the characters in fighting games. Like that's in the back of people's minds, but it's not really real. But then having new episodes that they're adding on, those are all good things. They're adding more content to their games. So, like for instance, for me, Shadow of War, like I played through the first game, then I played through like a little bit of the DLC, and by that time I was getting kind of worn out for it. But
Mm.
I have it on my little spreadsheet that I want to come back and play throughout the DLC because I really enjoyed that game, and I haven't done it yet, but that is going to be a big bonus for me coming back and playing all those new episodes, giving me new content to the game because I really enjoyed it, and I'll get to play it more now because I won't, even though it's getting great reviews. I'm not going to buy Shadow of War when it comes out, too cheap, but I'll get it when the game of the year
Yeah,
comes out and it's $20.
I won't either. I mean, like, I like Shadow of Mordor, but I'm not like in a rush to get another one, especially like with all the DLC stuff. But like, the Bright Lord was a cool DLC for
Mm-hmm.
Shadow of Mordor. But I don't know. I kind of want to shift like what the discussion a little bit towards. I don't know. What are some DLCs that you guys really liked over the years? Because I know a few that I consider like up to the same quality as the game that they went along with. And most recently for me, that would be Mafia 3 Season Pass. Like, well, I haven't played the third piece of the DLC, but the first two were awesome. And they were, they were shorter, obviously, because it's DLC, but they were every bit up to the same quality, if not higher, because they added a few more mechanics and, like, had some, like, more crazy moments than I remember from, like, only a few of the missions in Mafia 3 had some of the craziness that were in this one, and like but also had like the cutscenes, the full voice acting, mocap, zero dip in quality at all. Excellent stories in their own right. Like I've really enjoyed it, but there are many more from over the years. So what are some examples you guys have of like really great DLC?
One of my favorite DLC packages is I got all the DLC for Borderlands 2,
Hmm.
probably 3 or 4 years ago. All those chunks of game, there were several hours of content each one.
Mhm.
Brought a bunch of new weapons to the game. And I played. I don't think I did every single thing, but I did most of them, and I spent a lot of time on it. That's probably the DLC set, season pass. God, they had so many individual things, but yeah, I got a lot of work out of Borderlands 2.
Yeah, that's instantly the first thing I think of when it comes to quality DLC. Without leaving a bad taste in my mouth, because Skyrim had some really good DLC as well, but just the whole mess with it on PS3 still kind of pisses me off. So
Yeah.
What is that story? I don't know that story.
when Skyrim launched on PS3, it was very, very poorly optimized, and it ended up having serious issues where if you played longer than 8 to 10 hours or something like that, it just seriously messed up your game and caused so many problems because it was optimized for 360. And
Hmm.
I don't exactly remember the specifics, but something about 360 was different than PS3, which caused a huge number of issues to uh, occur once you started playing through the game and started, messing around with certain things because it saved what you did in the world, as a static thing. Like you moved a cup in one part of the world and it would know they did it, and
Yeah, yeah.
load times became outrageous and save files became outrageously big, and it just crashed and was so glitchy and buggy. And just the PS3 to the point where they had to delay the DLC for them to fix the game on PS3
Hmm.
before they could put it out. Yeah, it was rough. And because of that, even though Skyrim had some really good DLC, that I don't, really count that for that reason. Borderlands definitely um, has some fantastic DLC, like Captain Scarlet was a really good one. I still very fondly remember that one.
Tiny Tina's was really good. Torgs was a lot of fun.
Yep.
Hmm.
Um, I don't know if you count expansions for MMO as DLC or not.
Yeah, I mean, sure, why not?
since it's almost like a new game each time, but
Well, compared to what it was 20 years ago, like say when you'd get like Brood War on top of StarCraft, that was almost like a whole new game. But now, I think expansions are sometimes smaller, except for in MMOs, they are generally still humongous with new things.
yeah. Well, I don't play too many DLC. Yeah, I really don't play too many like DLCs separate from the main game anymore, unless they're just really, really spectacular, or I buy Game of the Year editions of games or something like that.
Yeah, I don't
Which,
either. They take a lot of time, but it's a great reason to come back around to the game if you ever want to.
yeah, and not only
Yeah.
that, but I tend to kind of get bored of a game after I've been playing it for a long, long time. So sometimes DLC is not the best thing
And
to do
speaking
right
of that,
after it.
I hate to admit it, but I'm getting at that wall in Metal Gear Solid right now. After like 2 weeks of playing like that almost constantly, I'm hitting that wall in Metal Gear Solid.
Yeah. Um, I actually kind of had a similar problem with Shadow of Mordor
Mm.
when I played so much of it, and then I got the platinum for it, and then I was going to start on the DLC for it, and then I was just like, I don't really want to play this anymore.
That was my exact experience.
So,
Yeah.
so I put it away, and I don't know if I'll ever get back to it.
I mean, I played through the Bright Lord, and I thought it was pretty good. But like then when I played the other one, the Lord of the Hunt thing, I was pretty disappointed in it because I was expecting it to be like something where you're hunting like a giant creature because they kind of showed one on like the little icon, and it turns out that you were just hunting more like high rank orc commanders or something, and I didn't have fun with it. I thought it sucked. But like, I mean, I have a bunch of examples of DLCs that I really liked. Some of my favorites, and I would definitely say Dying Light: The Following was amazing. I mean, it was practically its own sequel. Like it was a ton of content. It changed up the gameplay a decent amount, like not the general combat, but adding in the buggy and like the huge open spaces was definitely a huge change. It had its own, like I thought that was a really great piece of DLC that I was really happy that I bought. But then also something like Bioshock Infinite, the Burial at Sea DLC was awesome. Really liked that. That was the one where you go back to Rapture, but it was before the events of before the events of Bioshock 1. Definitely an awesome piece of DLC. Like I especially like DLCs that add like story wise or just have some good story content. That's also my problem with a lot of DLCs is a lot of the times they end up being underwhelming or just like kind of more content but just not at the same quality level, like as far as story wise and stuff like that. And but I would say that GTA 4 had some excellent story DLC. At least the Battle of Gay Tony I thought was awesome, which is why I was pretty pissed that they went back on their promise for GTA 5 basically to do a story-based DLC for that and just did multiplayer trash instead because, you know, all the little kids love to play that online and spend money
like
on
20 million of them.
microtransactions. And yeah, it's ridiculous. Like, and it's like the ones for GTA 4 sold incredibly well, so it's not like they wouldn't make money, and especially considering that they sold those for like $20 each, which is like a good amount of money for DLCs like that. But yeah, like and also one of the early ones I'm also another huge fan of is Half-Life 2 Episode 1 and 2. Like for me, those were fantastic. I mean, it sucks that they ended on a cliffhanger and then didn't do Episode 3 because Valve sucks and doesn't make games anymore. But on their own, they were really excellent, and they really like kind of got me more into the story than the actual Half-Life 2 did. It made me appreciate the game a lot more, and yeah, no, I thought that they were just excellent pieces of extra content. However, The Last of Us Left Behind, I'm not the biggest fan of. Like, some people love it. I didn't.
It was good. It wasn't amazing, but it was good.
Yeah, I was a little disappointed with it. Now, I don't know if you want to talk, like, standalone releases. but I thought Infamous First Light was great. Did you guys play it?
I I played it. I platinumed it. I did not love it. I felt that was one of the worst open world places I've ever played in any game. It was like the most lifeless city I've ever seen. Um, that's it. That's how I felt. I hated the open world part. The battle arena was all right, but everything in the city just felt like it. Like, oh, I'm moving over this gray block to pick up this pink thing, and that's it. Yeah, it was a very dry city.
It was
Well,
okay.
that's one of the things I actually like about Infamous is it's not about the city. It's about the story, really, which I always enjoyed. Um, yeah, a lot of my favorite open world games are actually like that, where it's like the open world is really not the focus.
One thing that bothers me about the story in that game and any other game that deals with when they're like a character doing drugs, like they won't actually like say the name of the drugs. Like she's like, "Oh, you took my stash of things," and like it just feels
I
very
just
funny.
assumed it was heroin.
That is what it was meant to be, but I hate when they're just like it just feels very fake. When like, "Oh, it's my stash
Yeah.
of my precious treasures." It's,
I mean, you can guess. Like, I mean, like, I guess it's like for the game rating and stuff.
yeah.
Um, so they don't have to make it a mature rated game or something. Although I don't even know, was Infamous a mature anyways? Like, I don't know. But oh yeah, I don't think
Festival
you
War
guys
was a
played it,
great
but I really
standalone.
liked Uncharted: The Lost Legacy. Thought that was an excellent standalone. Like, not, I mean, obviously not up to quality as most of the main series, but I really, really enjoyed it. I thought it was a lot better than I expected.
I'm I played some of it, and I haven't gotten back to it. I got so annoyed by the open world, and then just other games came out, and Chloe is no Nathan Drake, so
See,
it's
I like Chloe, I just don't like Nadine.
I don't really like Chloe. I mean, not that I don't hate her, but Uncharted to me is playing as Nathan Drake, so the fact that I'm not kind of really psychologically makes it far worse than just about every other Uncharted. I mean,
Yeah.
it plays really, really well, but just the story I'm very blah about.
Yeah,
I just picked up Uncharted 4, so I'll be playing
it
that
gets
very soon.
better after the open area, but I really like the open area because it was just some puzzle and treasure hunting opportunities that I really enjoyed, plus some open world combat opportunities, which really reminded me quite a bit of Metal Gear Solid 5, because it was very much like that, an open area where you could attack from whatever direction you wanted and use the tools at your disposal to either go through it entirely stealth or just go guns a-blazing and fuck everyone up. And yeah, I just really liked it. But it did like it. The pacing picks up so much after that open world area. Like you have that area, then the rest of the game is basically like linear kick-ass shooter that Uncharted is really known for, and some great set pieces, like awesome set pieces. So like I was very happy with that because like I've always loved set pieces in Uncharted games. I thought that Uncharted 4, it wasn't that it didn't have enough, but I was just like, it spoiled the best one, so I was like constantly looking for a better one after that point in the game, and it just never came. So it was like, yeah, it's like I felt like we kind of got gypped a little bit as far as set pieces in Uncharted 4, and Lost Legacy completely made up for that for me. So you'll see when you play the rest of it, but I really, really enjoyed, especially the way the game ended. But another one, like, did you play Wolfenstein: The Old Blood?
I did not.
I
That
can't
is
wait till
one.
they have a 2 pack of the old blood and the new thing, which I'm waiting for that to not be less than $30, and I cannot wait to play through those.
Oh
Because you
yeah,
guys
well,
talk about
well,
how great
Wolfenstein:
Wolfenstein
The New
was.
Order is incredible, but The Old Blood is good. Like, if you like the gameplay, it actually adds a little bit to it. The Old Blood will also be fun, but it doesn't have anywhere near as much story or cutscenes as the New Order does. So it's like it's a standalone, but it's like kind of at a lower quality, which I thought was disappointing. It is a good amount of content. It took me like 8 hours, but I was just like a little disappointed that it didn't have like the same cutscenes and story content that the main game had. And it's actually been a few DLCs. Oh yeah, Just Cause 3, which I actually love the season pass of that and the DLCs of that. But instead of having actual cutscenes, it had these kind of like little cartoon comic book type things.
I
And
hate when they do that.
yeah, like I was just gonna mention that because it's not the only game I've seen that's done that. It's just the only one I could think of. But like, yeah, I don't like that either. Like, didn't Infamous Festival of Blood do that too? Comic book, maybe.
The first two Infamous games did that a lot
Oh.
in
Well,
general.
I know the first one did, yeah. I'm thinking of the second one, though. Like, I thought it did have legit cutscenes. I don't know. Maybe not.
It was a little bit of everything. Like you got a bunch of comic type events when you had moral choices to make. That's when it kind of became a comic booky.
Yeah. But I think there's, like, a lot of room for, like, good DLCs. Like, I mentioned some examples of ones where I thought were, like, pretty much good enough to stand as their own game. Like, and added some really significant... Oh! Another pretty big one and relevant one. The Evil Within's DLC. For sure. Like, it... Because it told the story... well, it took place during the main game, basically. Maybe a little bit before as well. But because it told the story from another character's perspective, you actually learn more about what's going on in the main game from the DLC than you do from actually playing. And, which is kind of amazing, but at the same time, it was like excellent DLCs in its own right, and like totally added to the story in a huge way. Like, and I liked that a lot. But anything like that where a DLC adds to the story, I love. Like, I really enjoy that sort of thing.
One of the more... It's a little different because it's Toys to Life, but one of the more memorable DLCs that I've played in the last year or so has been the LEGO Dimensions Sonic expansion, where it was the best Sonic game in years.
No kidding.
Yeah. I know you're a Sonic fan, Jordash, so if you ever find both those things relatively cheap, LEGO Dimensions being a Toys to Life game, though, with the whole starter kit, you're gonna... I think the cheapest, unless it starts going on clearance in several years. The cheapest these days, it's like $30, maybe $40, and the Sonic pack is another 15 or so on sale.
Yeah.
But these are also Legos that you build, so that's a plus. But the Lego levels were very, very fun. They were honestly the best Sonic game I played in a long time.
I haven't picked up Sonic Mania yet, but I probably will when for the holiday sale, because I really want to play it. That and Sonic Forces. I'm sure that's going to come out in a bundle of some kind, and I'll probably get them both.
Yep. If I can count expansions, World of Warcraft's most recent expansion called Legion was very, very good. Obviously, it very drastically changed the game, so again, I don't know if MMO expansions necessarily count, but if they do, Legion was great. The most recent Final Fantasy one was good, but the one that preceded it, I thought was just spectacular. Heaven's Ward. It still has some of the more memorable music I've heard in games in the last several years. And love me some Snow. But since we're lauding DLC so much, I wanted to, unless anyone else has some really memorable stuff. No? Cool.
What? Remember what?
Did you have any other awesome DLC lately?
Not really. Like, well, the one thing I'll say about like racing game DLC is one thing that makes it so much more valuable to me is when the cars, it's an actual simulator. Like Assetto Corsa the DLC is not only cheap, but each car feels so completely different to the next that to me it makes it worth um, like 10 times as much money as some DLC for say something like The Crew, where it's like every car feels the same, or like Need for Speed too. Like those games do have car DLC, but to me it's like almost purely cosmetic because it's like they all feel the same. But like when they feel different, when it's an actual racing simulator, it's just so much more enjoyable to get DLC because it really adds something completely different to the game. While some of the other ones don't, but um, yeah, I don't know. Like there's definitely been some DLCs that like I'm probably not thinking of that have been great, but at the moment I'm not thinking of it. So go ahead with whatever else you got.
Oh, it's funny that you mention bad DLC that you find to be purely cosmetic and thus worse off, because the thing that kind of made me think of doing
Well,
season passes particularly was
oh yeah, okay. I see where
the
you're going.
most yeah, there was a game that recently came out called Blue Reflections that is part visual novel and part action RPG of some kind of like Persona,
Hmm.
I think. I don't really know. I could be just talking out my ass right now, but I that's the impression that I've gotten from it. Um, and it got a season pass that costs $80, and so far it's entirely cosmetic, like costumes for the girls and stuff like that. And that's one of the it's one of the shitty things of um, season passes and stuff like that that has happened. I think Dead or Alive does it all the time.
Oh God, those
Fighting
flood the store
games,
every week. I don't know who could possibly be buying them.
because they do season
Hopefully no one.
passes like no, I don't understand because they do like several season passes in several years worth of season passes for, and they're all costumes and they all cost an outrageous amount of money,
Yep.
like $80 to $100, and it's almost entirely cosmetic.
Yep.
I don't necessarily want to say that's predatory. I just want to know who the fuck pays $100 for costumes in a fighting game for a year.
I don't know, man, but I see those stupid sales, like new ones, every single goddamn week in the store. I don't know who's buying them, who's wasting their money on that. It's trash.
Because if they do more than one, you would think that someone is buying these things. I mean, one costume, even if it's overpriced, I could kind of understand, but seriously, spending close to you're paying more for costumes than you would to buy a brand new game. I don't.
Yeah, it boggles
Yeah.
the mind. I mean, you can find stuff like that, like the same things that Dead or Alive provides for free on the internet. So I don't know why you'd spend all that for just
Yeah.
character costumes.
Yeah, and yeah, it truly I don't understand it. I mean, I have a hard time even comprehending me. I mean, with fighting games, those season passes tend to be a little expensive, especially these days with like Injustice and Street Fighter, I guess, had one. And what other recent fighting game did we get?
Injustice 2.
Yeah, who knows? I can never keep up with them, but
Tekken.
Injustice 2 had like a $30 to $40 season pass or something like that. It was a little more expensive than normal, and it's got like it's got the characters that are fine, but then it has all this other microtransaction crap that isn't always included in the character that is a pre-order bonus that's locked away, and then you have to pay money to get it if it's not, a straight up character to play as. I don't I don't agree with that. I mean, I have no problem with fighting games offering new characters as DLC. That's fine. It extends the life of the fighting game and makes things more interesting. Like Smash Brothers did it for the first time, and that wasn't necessarily an issue. I mean, the total cost of all that DLC was a little outrageous considering it's a Nintendo game, but a lot of it was piecemeal and some of it was, cross-buy with 3DS and stuff like that. So if you just bought it for Wii, it wasn't too bad and you could cherry pick what you wanted, which is another reason people are anxiously waiting for that port to Switch so they can get all that shit instead of paying like $120. But, those characters added something interesting. Cloud Strife in a Smash Brothers game, that's amazing. Ryu, also amazing. And I can't really speak for Injustice at all. Raiden, I guess, will play similarly to Raiden. But other than that, in Injustice, I can't really speak for those characters. But $80 for a season pass of costumes? What the fuck?
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's a little much. Hugo, did you talk about Drive Club Season Pass?
I mentioned it. Like, I really liked it.
Oh, yeah, like you get so much for that Season Pass.
There's like 40 cars. Well, the tracks were free. But, yeah, you get 40 cars, and each one of them comes with its own event as well.
Yeah,
which I thought
it
was
was.
definitely cool.
Yeah, I like having so many events. Like I think the main thing was like 250 stars to get, and then everything else bumps you up to like 11 or 1200 stars. Like it more than triples the amount of events. And yeah, when I bought that season
Yeah.
pass on top of the game, I was like, this is worth every penny now. I don't know how much a season pass was when it came out, but I bought the game like plus season pass for, I don't know, it was like $20.
And that was one of the ones that Yowza criticized for having DLC plans ahead of time. He said it was cut content.
Well,
Nope.
I mean, he's very talented at finding
Planning.
where things could be going wrong.
Again,
If he wasn't around, we wouldn't know when we were getting screwed.
with Drive Club, the game was done a year before it launched. I have to assume pretty close to a year before it launch. Because it was slated
say that.
Well, it was slated to be released around the holiday of the PS4 launch, and then it was delayed by about a year. So
I mean, they
assume
also
that they were
changed like game director, and like they had some troubles, like similar to Uncharted 4 with Amy Hennig, like switching a game director, and like they switched a bunch of things up, and like also the year before it was not anywhere near in the state that it was when it launched. So it's like it's a good thing. But like as far as DLC, like I said, with racing games, the licensing is a huge thing. It's a huge issue.
Yeah.
And especially Drive Club, which has the best car models you'll ever see in a racing game, which says a lot, because there's a lot of racing games with incredible, ridiculously detailed cars. Drive Club is the tip top of them all. Those take at least 6 months to make each one, and there's 40 DLC cars. So yeah, there's no way that they simply cut that from them. They could have had that ready on day one. No way.
But I'm sure there's still quite a bit of content that was, cut, and the game was in a somewhat finished state that, we will never know what exactly happened with Drive Club that caused it to be delayed by about a year. It could have been, network stuff. It could have been server stuff. It could have been changing of personnel stuff. Who knows? But
Mm-hmm.
you have to. I'm assuming that there were a number of people that, even if there wasn't much to do, kept working on stuff, and that's where DLC comes from. When there's nothing to do in the game because it's done or polished or going through some phase, you keep working on it anyways and make new content, but you can't put it in the game because it's too late or it doesn't fit. Point is, stop being a fucking conspiracy theorist. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it like Drive Club pretty much ended up being the game it was meant to be. Like it did have the weather stuff added after launch, but otherwise it was the same game it was day one, except for all the DLC and the online stuff actually worked eventually, but otherwise it really, I mean, the delay, like, but otherwise, like, there wasn't any cut content. Like, maybe they could have had the rain, the weather stuff ready before launch, but that's really the only thing that was the major thing that was missing. But, yeah, like, I don't know, there are some games that have cut content, but I think it's, like, a lot of the time it's just, like, they have to do planning ahead of time. Although, like I said before, I think that they should not announce stuff super early, because it does send the wrong message. It does, like, make people, like, yowza, sometimes rightfully, by the way, think that content is being cut from the game. And I would say in Shadow of War's case, there's a definite possibility of that. Like, I wouldn't say it's a conspiracy theory at all to say that they have cut content, because, I mean, for them to announce a game, then the next day state their DLC plans, that's just crazy.
Well, Shadow of War is also WB, which also did Injustice.
And they did Batman Arkham Knight, which the season pass was, like, pretty pricey for the amount of content you got.
Yeah, that was a $50 season pass.
And I recently got it for like $10, so haha.
Yeah. And the only reason that Witcher 3 wasn't anything like that was because they just needed a publisher, and WB jumped on it to be able to put it out in our market. They're the exception, not the rule. WB has been kind of shitty and shady lately with their DLC.
Yeah.
And microtransactions.
Yeah, microtransactions are a thing that, like, really sucks, and it's like the main way people make money on, like, the mobile gaming industry. And a lot of times it's abusive and just shitty. Like, there are times where it's not, like, I think Fallout Shelter, which I haven't played, and because it's just not my type of game, but, like, when they came out with it, they said all the right things as far as that stuff. But then there are also other games which would be great games if it wasn't for the microtransactions, like Real Racing 3. But, like, that's kind of the model on cell phones, and the free-to-play market as well for gaming. But what annoys me is when $60 games have significant microtransactions, like GTA, like Call of Duty. Although it's not nearly as significant in Call of Duty. And in Battlefield, it's practically a non-issue, I would say. Like, as far as I know, like, at least I know it was in, like, the battle packs, you mean? Like, that's nothing to me. Like, they're not getting exclusive weapons in that, are they?
Well, the battle packs are in Battlefield. And forgive me if I'm wrong, but I think it's the same with the most recent Call of Duty, where you get them just by playing the game, but you can pay money to get them more, and it's mostly. I know you get some new weapons out of them in Battlefield.
I think the key difference is that, like, Call of Duty, some of those weapons you only can get them through the battle packs, and they're nearly impossible to get, like, just by earning it regular. Like, someone did a study to prove that basically there's a significant increase in the chances of you getting one of those exclusive guns if you pay for the microtransactions rather than just earning it the honest way. Not to mention the fact that it's a, like, ridiculous grind to earn a lot of that stuff in Call of Duty compared to, like, if you just spend money and stuff, like, which, so, like, I don't like that idea. But then, like, there are games like Killzone Shadowfall, which did sort of have microtransactions. It had some, like, $3 or $2 personalization packs. I thought it was fine because all the maps were free. And I think Battlefront 2 is, I don't know if they changed it, they might have, but, like, originally they said that all the maps were going to free, this is not going to be a season pass, which would make sense for them because Battlefield 4, Battlefield Hardline, and now Star Wars Battlefront, they eventually gave the season pass away for free, which, like, I think it's still free now, the season pass for Battlefront. So it would make sense for the future, instead of doing all that, just, make the map free from the start and have, like, some cosmetic stuff that people can pay for. To me, that's fine. If you're going to give away maps free to keep the community together and, like, avoid segregation on the servers, I'm fine with that. If you're going to add in some microtransaction, I would hope that it's not like the way Call of Duty does it with exclusive guns and, like, you can't really earn them without like, that to me is a little too far. But, like, as far as cosmetic stuff, I think it's fine. If you're going to...
Uncharted?
Yeah. Well, that's another thing is Uncharted it's another one where you have DLC weapons that are extremely difficult to like, it's a ridiculous grind in Uncharted to get them without paying money. But if you pay money, it's not like Call of Duty where you're paying money only for a chance to get those weapons. Like, you're paying the Uncharted points, like, I think it was like maybe $10, and you could get all of the DLC guns, which I would say is not too bad. Or you could pay $5 and get like 2 DLC guns or something like that. And I actually did. I got the P90, and it was the best gun of the game for me for a while. Like, it might still be. But, like, yeah, no. So, like, it's a little shady, but not nearly as bad as some of the others in Uncharted 4. But as far as the other cosmetic stuff,
if we're going to talk about loot boxes, those are the worst things in the world. Terrible. Hate them.
Usually. But I think Overwatch does it maybe best. I mean, you buy the game. Every hero and map has been totally free. Every new mode and
everything is cosmetic.
Everything is free. You get a loot box every time you level up. You get a new loot box every time a seasonal event comes out. If you like what you're getting, you could pay basically $1 a box. That's fine because there's no advantage at all. No gameplay advantage whatsoever. It's entirely 100% cosmetic anyways, so that's the best.
I still hate that you can't, unless, like in Overwatch, they have the loot boxes, and if you have, I don't know what the little points are called, but like if you have enough of them, then you can buy the specific thing that you want. Or like if you wanted to eventually like save up your Overwatch points to buy like a legendary skin, I don't remember the exact number, but it was like a lot. Like, I don't know how many loot boxes you'd have to get enough duplicates to get those many points.
Well, some of the loot boxes also give you money. Yeah. I've gotten a legendary pile of money, which is the most fucking annoying thing ever. Yeah. And it's like 500 coins. And that sounds like a lot, but the best skins, if you want some of the really good, like, limited time seasonal event skins, those are like 3,000 coins. So yeah, when duplicates are 5 coins a piece, it takes a while. Again, not that it's in the slightest bit necessary, unless you can't play unless you get that one Mercy skin. That's the only good example, though. I think most are shitty. If you get any kind of edge in a game, don't do it. Stop.
Especially due to loot boxes.
Just stop.
Yeah.
That's why I'm not buying Shadow of War until it's cheap. Between the DLC and the loot boxes, I don't need that shit.
Yeah.
I'll wait for the game of the year when it's $20 myself. Plus, I have 2 Switch games and an Assassin's Creed coming out this month. I don't need anything else.
I mean, Shadow of War was one of the, it's in my memory of scoping out sales, one of the best for Game of the Years that go on sale for a really good price. Like, it was the Game of the Year's edition was $4. It's $4 in the summer sale, and most of the rest of the time when it goes on sale is $8, which is still really, really good. Like, I got it for 8 years last Christmas. Yeah, and if you have the patience and don't care about getting it right away, yeah, there's always Game of the Years.
That is true. Speaking of Game of the Year,
Horizon. They did
Zelda.
announce the Game of the Year edition recently for Horizon, although it's only like one DLC, so I kind of see it as pointless, to be honest.
It's the complete edition, not the
It's
Game of the
just a
Year.
it's just a re-release and it's cheaper. Nothing wrong with that.
I mean,
Well,
I guess it's
all the
good so
DL
you won't have to download patches and stuff, but
Yep, that's the main
otherwise,
thing. Because it's not a completely different game, but they added quite a bit. So if you have a terrible internet connection and can't download gigabytes worth of patches, then it should be on disk, ready to go, plus the DLC.
yeah, I can't even imagine not being able to download patches these days. Like, it's craziness.
Well, I have heard of people who have limited bandwidth and have like a monthly
Yeah,
limit.
that's wicked annoying too. Yeah.
And my in-laws live so far out in the country that it took my little sister-in-law the better part of like 2 days to download Splatoon 2.
Jeez.
Do
And
they
it
have
is
like the satellite internet or something like that?
yes,
Oh god, that's the worst.
satellite internet in like bumfuck Arkansas. So
Well, I remember just like a couple years ago, even I think when I first got PS4, like I had internet that was 1/10 as fast as what I have now as far as downloading, and it literally would take like a couple days to download a 50 gigabyte game.
it's rough.
Yeah, it definitely is. Like I remember, it would be like a gigabyte an hour, or maybe a little less than an hour.
Splatoon 2 is a Switch game though, so it's got to be under 32 gigs.
True. But I remember when my PS3 hard drive corrupted, and I had to download all that stuff back. It took me several weeks, and yeah, it was ridiculous. And I remember like Comcast sent me an email saying, the past month or two, you've downloaded 600 gigabytes worth of data. Is like, we just wanted to make sure that like someone's not like tapping into your, like, because it's an abnormal amount of bandwidth. And like, yeah, I was like, no, that was me. My hard drive corrupted. I had to download a bunch of stuff. But like, yeah, it was just funny because it's like it took literally, I think, more than a month to download all that stuff back because of how slow the connection was. Now it's like I download, I don't know, I think like 10 gigabytes in the time it took me to download one back then. So, yeah. Fuck yeah, having good internet. And it's like, mine's not even that great. Like, there are people with way better. It's like, but it's good enough for me. But I don't know. I think we've covered it. You guys want to wrap it up?
Sure.
Sure, wrap it up.
Wrap it. All right. Thanks for listening, everybody. Talk to you next time. I was going to make a condom joke, but couldn't think of it in
Wrap it up.
time.
Stay safe.